Good morning. Welcome to today's episode of the Big Nasty Show. Our guest today pretty much doesn't need much of an introduction. His voice pretty much does it all for him. What's your introduction, sir?
Good morning, everybody. It's time for the morning briefing. How's that?
I think we know who it is. It's Phil Friedman from Friedman Adventures. Phil, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
In as much as the point of me doing this is to shine a positive light on not only the people, but the businesses that are making a positive impact in our fisheries and for the anglers, you were one of the first names on my list because the Friedman Adventures and the morning briefing. I can speak from my experience. I'm a junkie to the morning briefing. That's what gets me
Appreciate that.
going and keeps me knowledgeable of what's going on in the fisheries and all the boats all the way from Santa Barbara down to Mexico. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a labor of love for sure.
Fantastic. And the point of this show is to shine the light on you and what's gotten you to where you are now. So from a previous phone call, we've done a little bit of back and forth. I know that you were born in 1958.
Whoa, that's a long time ago, man.
And grew up in Torrance, correct?
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about growing up there.
Oh, it was great. My parents were really wonderful parents. We went to Catholic school since day one. So we had that education going on, Nativity Grammar School, Bishop Montgomery High School. Bishop Montgomery High School is maybe a mile from the beach. Okay. So we could go surf fishing before going to high school. And there was a whole Redondo sport fishing thing. That was my introduction to sport fishing. So living in Torrance, we're close to Redondo Beach, and we took full advantage of that proximity.
How old were you when you were first exposed to fishing?
Probably 3 years old. I think my dad bought me one of those yellow drop lines on the old Mondstadt Redondo Pier, and we tried to catch big piling perch there, my brother Paul and I. So very, very, very young. I have very vague recollection of that, but I can remember trying to do that with my dad, and then we just took off from there. We absolutely fell in love with the sport.
When did fishing become a passion?
Probably sometime around then. I mean, we had a burning desire to keep fishing, and we kept doing it, and we'd jump on the half-day boats out of Redondo. And ultimately, when I was about 12 years old, a guy by the name of Howard Warbay said, "Hey, kid, how would you like to fish for free and scrub the boat at night?" I'm like, oh, my God, we've died and gone to heaven. And that was how we got into that part to get on the inside of the sport fishing industry.
So that you got your foot in the door with not only fishing, but with working on a fishing boat.
Yeah.
How did that continue forward for you in your life?
Well, I mean, the work ethic that you learn in the sport fishing industry is something you can carry on into everything you do. Most recently, I was in China for 3 years teaching. And believe me, I walked into that school and I saw foreign teachers go down and do their 3 hours of teaching and up and watch TV the rest of the day. And I was thinking, hey, what else can I do here in China? Not only to learn more, but make more money. And I looked at that and I said, this is going to be easy. This is a piece of cake. Everybody around here is watching TV. And so I took that work ethic and applied it and still do to this day. Just work, work, work. You learn that on the boat. So my career in sport fishing went, from decking in Redondo Beach to running a commercial fishing boat for a couple of years to decking on the Searcher in San Diego, working for Frank Lopresti, Art Taylor, all the big names in the day, working for many guys around here. It took me until my college days, and then I started to focus a lot more on college, and I turned my attention to being a lay missionary in Latin America and Mexico. I spent time doing that.
So faith is obviously a big part of your background.
Yeah, I would say yes. Obviously, I think we all have our doubts sometimes. And I had a Jesuit priest one time when I was doubting my faith, said, if you're not doubting your faith, you're probably not thinking about it that much. So it's a good thing that you're thinking, that you're delving into, the whole thing. So yeah, faith, especially as you get closer to kicking the bucket like I am right now, you start to think more in terms of God, and you start to think about, I do at least, what are they going to write on my tombstone? Are they going to write he spent his final years watching TV and slack-jawed with a clicker in his hand, or did he do something positive? Was he a good example for his grandkids? Was he a good father, a good husband? Those kind of things. The kind of things that someone's going to scribble on your tombstone. Those become more important when you get to my age, when I'm ready to kick the bucket at any moment now.
You had mentioned that you did some missionary trips.
Yeah.
Give us a kind of a little bit of a breakdown chronologically on some of the trips that you had done.
Yeah, so when I graduated from high school, I had knee surgery. And when I was up in the hospital recovering, Father Ignatius, who was my teacher at Bishop Montgomery High School, visited me. He said, "Hey, how would you like to go to Costa Rica?" And I was like, "Where is Costa Rica?" And he goes, "Oh my God, you learned absolutely nothing, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, Father, pretty much." And so my parents heard that, and they were like, "You're going to Costa Rica. You don't even think about not going."
Okay.
So I went with him, spent a year there, learned Spanish. I absolutely, the only reason I got out of Spanish class in high school is because Miss Godowski didn't want to put up with me for another year. So give him a D and get rid of him. I mean, I couldn't say hola after a year or two of Spanish lessons. And then I went to Costa Rica, and man, I mean, there's these little kids outside of the parish who they want me to teach reading to, and these kids are talking to me, and I'm like, these are the coolest kids. These are the most wonderful people. I got to learn this language. Not only that, if I have to go to the bathroom, I better figure out how to say, I need to go to the bathroom, I'm hungry, or I'm having a heart attack.
Right.
And so it gave me a motivation to learn the language, which in about a year, I pretty well got down pretty well, the Spanish language. And then, of course, just traveling throughout the country gave me a reason to go back to Costa Rica. Ultimately, I met my wife there several years later. So it was all very, very positive. And after the Costa Rica experience, let me think about this. I don't know if I graduated from Loyola. I think I did. Maybe I did. No, I ended up going to Mexico for a couple of years. I got an AA from El Camino College over in Torrance, and then went to Mexico for a couple of years and continued that. That was living with tribes of Indians and really remote areas of Mexico, as well as Acapulco and Mexico City, so some of the more urban areas also. And then came back and went to Loyola, and actually, just missed graduating with honors by that much. I think I had a 3.46 GPA. And for a crummy high school student, I was like impressed with myself at that point. Like, hey, I can actually do this when I'm motivated to do it. I see a reason to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That was everything I needed to excel academically. And for me, a 3.4 was excelling academically.
Oh, I think that's absolutely excelling. And it's interesting is once you find the motivation, it turns that into something different. And
100%.
It's not work, it's something you like doing.
You're right, Walt. 100%. I mean, it's just like this business, How do you get up every morning and do the morning briefing? Because I go to sleep at night with a little smile on my face thinking, hey, I get to get up tomorrow morning and walk out on a beautiful beach with a good cup of coffee and talk to a lot of really wonderful people about fishing and other adventures. I mean, what could be better? I'm blessed.
And the way you said that, I've heard that referenced by Christian people, Christian apologists. Don't think of it as I've got to. Think of it from the perspective of I get to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then your work.
You flipped it.
Yeah, you flipped it, and it's fun and it's enjoyable, and you feel like you're doing something for people. I have a lot of people who'll say, I'm disabled. I can't fish anymore. I get my vicarious thrill from you every single morning. That means the world to me. When I hear something like that, that really, really, really pushes me to want to get out and do the next morning briefing or go on the next adventure.
That is phenomenal. Obviously, a lot of us know you from that voice. You had capitalized on the gift that you were given by being a voiceover actor at some point.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I didn't capitalize on that as much as I probably could have because I was a single dad at the time and I had my kids a lot of the time. And there were some opportunities that came up that I passed on because I wanted to stay at home with my boys. And that was not a big sacrifice. I have the mentality of about a 9-year-old. So messing around with my kids came really natural for me. And to this day, there's a kid named Scott Bucher. He's not even a kid, but my wife and I will see him and I playing around and she'll say, niño, children. And I still I still act like a kid. So staying at home with my kids, I was doing a company called 976 Tuna, so I was running that out of my house. And then that just left me opportunities to make sure they went to school. I take them to Montessori school, which was up in Palos Verdes. Go up and pick them up. Boom, right down to Abalone Cove. We're surf fishing. We're digging through the tide pools. We're doing all kinds of cool stuff, messing with snakes up in the mountains, trying to find scorpions, doing all of that cool stuff. So I passed on a lot of this, but I did do quite a bit of voiceover stuff and did, some major stuff, and don't regret that at all. The time with my kids, like when they're going to write something on your tombstone, would I prefer that they spent quality time with his kids, or did a Domino's pizza commercial? You know which one I choose for sure.
Want to take a moment here, thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Sammy Lamb Bake Shop. That is a bake shop that services both the Orange County and Los Angeles market. And the owner, Karen, wanted to present you with a box of her cake bites.
Karen, I love you. Thank you so much.
This is what Karen has become known for.
Yes.
The first flavor that really took off was a red velvet cake bite. And in fact, recently she presented both me and my brother a box of them that were in the shape of hockey pucks.
Oh my God, I would love that. I love hockey.
Since we're in the Stanley Cup Finals right now, I'm kind of thinking, boy, that was a nice way to go. So
yeah,
Sammy Lamb Bake Shop, Orange County, California.
That's great.
So we're good there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's times like this that I'm grateful my wife doesn't speak English and doesn't watch any of these podcasts, because I get to tell her, mi amor, look what I got you, my love. I went out special just for you.
Fantastic. So let's take a little left turn there. You brought up 976 Tuna.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that venture.
So I was also, something that I did is I worked in the Redondo Sport Fishing ticket office, which was a freaking craziest place you could ever imagine. We had the barges running at night with 400 people going. You had hundreds of people returning from the half-day runs. I mean, Redondo was on the map. It was the epicenter of sport fishing. And you had phone calls coming in. You had two guys working, doing this, taking the rental rods, giving the rental rods, selling the tickets, answering the phone calls. So most of the time when somebody called and said, hey, how's the fishing? Was there any bonita at Rocky Point? You'd pretty much hang up on them.
Right.
You didn't have time for it. Exactly. And other guys were way ruder than, I was like, I'm so sorry. We've got other guys are like, go F yourself, hang up on them. So I saw a need for information to get out. And I thought if you could present it in like a courteous, entertaining way, people would call and pay to get it. And so there was a lot of porn numbers in those days. And I said, why don't we do a legit fishing information thing? Oh, that'll never work. It's the dumbest idea. So I'm known for dumb ideas. I forged ahead with it. And I was teaching in high school at Bishop Montgomery High School during that time. We started out, I used to walk every single landing and put a flyer on every car, almost every day. I'd start my mornings out by doing that. Just walk out and put a 976 Tuna flyer on every car. So we got started, Walt, and, one day we had 2 phone calls. I mean, $2. And I was like, oh, man, we got 6 phone calls today. Oh, we got 3. Oh, we're up to 8. And it was going like that. And then my college professor, Pete Hoffman, called me one morning and goes, have you seen the LA Times this morning? I said, no. And he said, go get the freaking paper. Earl Gretzky, the sports writer, wrote an entire huge front page deal on 976 Tuna, how much he loves it, how entertaining he finds it, how interesting it is. 3,000 phone calls that day. Then the next day, 2,800 phone calls. 3,500 phone calls.
Wow.
And that launched that. Earl, thank you, Earl, if you're still around. He was the guy that really launched that whole thing for us.
And it's such a simple concept, but at the same time, look what it's morphed into, because I see 976 Tuna on Instagram. So when you had first told me about that, that's the association I made. And then I find out this morning from you, that's the gentleman that ended up taking the business from you.
Correct.
Or
yes.
You sold the business to that gentleman.
Yes.
So it's still in production today.
Yes.
And a lot of content. But that started with you.
Yes.
And a simple concept of keeping fishermen informed of what's happening where. And obviously this is morphed into where you're at now with the morning briefing.
100%, because it was the entertainment value, and like I went out and bought a single sideband radio so I could call some boat fishing down at Clipperton Island, record the call, and then put that on 976 tuna. So these guys who are crazy, and the captains on fishing boats are near gods to them, are hearing Frank Lopresti at Clipperton Island talk about catching mammoth yellowfin tuna. They were going nuts over this because there was no internet. There was no other access to this kind of information. So we started doing more and more of that. And then we started doing more and more special updates. So you do your morning update and say, we'll be back at 12 noon. And the business reasons for doing that, of course, are obvious. You get another phone call out of the deal. But we would do, like, if I got any information in, I would put it out there. And there was this symbiotic relationship with the boats where those guys knew if they were on 976 tuna, they're running with a full boat tomorrow. So they wanted to give me the information. And they wanted to contribute. And it just became that perfect relationship that way.
That is phenomenal. I love the way that just became a building momentum.
Yeah.
Wow, phenomenal. At some point, we know that you had gone to China.
Yeah.
Tell us about teaching in China.
So my son Patrick was going through a few difficulties, nothing really major, but I felt like he was drinking a little too much and doing some stuff like that. So I started looking into giving him an opportunity to do kind of what I did when I went to Costa Rica and Mexico, because that straightened me out. That was the kind of thing where you go and you see, wow, there's people that really have trouble getting food every day. There's people that are immersed in this poverty and they're never going to get out. They're stuck in the third world. And I thought, if he could go do something like that, that would change him around. So I started researching, and he was kind of iffy on it. And I looked at him one day and I go, what's going to happen? I'm going to end up in China and you're not. That's what's going to happen. Because this looks really interesting to me. And shortly thereafter, the principal at a school in Kunshan, China, called me, did an interview. And it was right before Thanksgiving. And she said, can you be here in a week? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I can be there in a week. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I had Thanksgiving dinner at Kentucky Fried Chicken in China. And so I went. I spent that first year lobbying to get Patrick to come. He came. We became the first father-son team to teach in Kunshan International School. He was loved by all the students. He's an athlete, so he did a lot of the athletic stuff, a good math teacher, and met his wife there, or his future wife, I should say, Kaylin, who was a Florida girl and was teaching there. And so everything came together for him. Mission accomplished. It went really, really great.
And what years was this?
Oh, man, you're messing with me. I'm so bad at that. I can tell you this, so when the COVID epidemics really just basically got started, I came to the United States after 3 years in China.
Okay.
Can anybody add that up?
So 18, 19, 20.
There you go. Thank you so much.
So COVID was what brought you back to the U.S.?
Yes. I fully intended, because I'd started my own school. I told you about the work ethic thing and how the teachers there, not everybody, hey, I've got friends in China, but a lot of the foreign teachers were lazy. So I started a school on my own. And we had a little school going, as well as the school I was teaching in. Then I was teaching at night in the malls, adults. That was great. Enjoyed that thoroughly. And so I was thinking, this could be my gig right into retirement. I kind of enjoy this. The bad thing was I was far from my kids and stuff. And now that I have grandkids, it would have become even more difficult. But, if you want to talk about divine providence or God bringing you back, if there was a reason for COVID, it brought me back here. And then I was sitting, listening to, you're not allowed to go outside. You can't go out for a walk. You can't leave your house. And I was like, wait a second. I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm not going out and be reckless, but I am definitely going out for a walk. And I'm not going to sit here. I'll start a podcast. What the heck? And that's how it started.
Friedman Adventures was born from
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was in 2020 or 2021?
I don't know. You tell me. Well, you got it down better than I do. It was like 4 years ago. So.
Okay, so we're 2021 time
Yeah.
frame. I've looked at some of your earlier content.
Yeah, did it make you sick to your stomach like it does most people?
No, it actually is very cyclical, because it's very much similar to what we're doing here today.
Yeah.
There is a particular episode early on for you that got you the exposure that
Yes.
just went, "Phew."
Yeah, 100%.
Tell us about that episode.
So that was the Desiree Rodriguez rescue reunion video. It is an emotional podcast, no doubt about it. Mark Paisano came on here. He's a captain that owns this landing, owns the Independence, been in the business a long time, been a friend of mine forever and ever.
Mhm.
Him and Paul Strasser were involved in a rescue 7 years ago now.
Right.
And Mark came on and mentioned that they had saved this little girl. Her name was Desiree. And he said, God, we often wondered what happened to her, but we have no clue, no idea. Well, Pablo Pena, who I fished with 10 years earlier in the Channel Islands one day. So that was my relationship with Pablo. He called and he said, Phil, because we hit it off on that trip, but I know who that girl is. I know. She's told me, kind of referenced that. So he put me in touch with her, and I said, "You need to reach out to her. She's, some weirdo calling her up." And so he kind of made the connection. I called her, and I said, "Can you be here in 3 days?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh my God, okay, perfect." So I mean, we're trying to hatch how we're going to do this and everything else. I basically hatched it right here the morning of. We got here. I told my son Philip, "Go out and tell Desiree she's going to be a translator. She's going to play like she's a translator."
Exactly.
And he goes, "I'm not doing that." I go, "Go out and freaking tell Desiree." And he, okay. And he comes back. He goes, "Okay, we're good." And she was fantastic because that all those emotions, she's meeting the guys who saved her life. Her family perished that day. It's a horrible tragedy. At the same time, it was a story of her survival. And she hung in there, and that reveal was as emotional as you can get. Have you seen it, Walt?
I watched it again this morning.
Okay.
So those two captains were sitting right here.
Correct.
You were sitting there, and she was right there.
That's right.
And there's a point where, as you said, it start off the interview by introducing her as we're going to take this and video it and send it back to Mexico.
Yes.
And in that midpoint where you tell and expose who she is, the gentleman that's sitting right here literally breaks down in tears immediately. Both of them have just that realization of, this is the person we saved so many years ago. And
gives me a shiver down my spine.
The wash of emotion is so obviously genuine and heartfelt. And I saw it not only on your podcast, but it's being replayed on other people's podcasts as a good human interest story.
Yes.
And that was where Friedman Adventures finally just went bam.
100%. Yeah, we went from a dopey little fishing podcast to getting actually international exposure as a result of that. CBS News came out here. I mean, we were in all kinds of magazines internationally, being called by, all kinds of news agencies to do follow-up reports on it. It really put us on the map. Wow. Just so fortunate.
And as you said, the divine intervention that happened between those three people.
Yeah.
I mean, when they found her from the interview, she was a mile from that boat.
Yes.
So she had been in the water for quite a number of
almost
hours.
24 hours. And that's, how hypothermia didn't take her life. I have no idea. And the fact that Paul Strasser, the guy that was sitting here, had the semblance of mind to put the binoculars up and scan the horizon instead of just coming upon the boat. There's a couple dead bodies here. Call the Coast Guard. We're done. Yeah. He had the semblance of mind to scan, and then he saw her. And he said, "I think we've got somebody here." And then they took off and went out there and found her, and she was still alive. Unbelievable.
Absolutely
unbelievable.
That is the hand of God definitely at work.
100%.
When did you start doing the morning briefing? Because that's my morning thing. When did you start doing that? Because you do multiple types of content for Friedman Adventures.
Yeah, the morning briefing, I listen to some podcasts, and some of the guys I listen to, I like politics, and I like to listen to news. And one of the guys that I listened to started doing a morning show, and he's a highly successful guy. So I said, why reinvent the wheel here? There's no morning sport fishing info. It's always in the evening when everything's done for the day. And so why not a morning refresher? And, with the nighttime tuna fishing, it makes even more sense because you can report on what happened last night, first thing in the morning. And so that was the impetus to start doing it. And I'll have to go back and watch the first one because I'm sure it sucks. But I just, whenever I do stuff like this, I just jump in. And whether it sucks or not, I just know that if you put one foot in front of the other one, it'll get better and better and better. You're going to go through your suck period,
Yeah.
but you're going to get better and better and better. And that includes tomorrow. The morning briefing should be better tomorrow than it was today. And if you're always striving to do that, it all gets better. And it just took off. And now so many people use that to make their angling decisions or just get some entertainment, to watch the ocean, see a fish caught. Like I talk about some disabled people who say, I get my vicarious thrill. I can't fish, but I can watch that and I feel like I've gone fishing after I'm all up to date on the latest.
And most dedicated anglers, they'll get multiple content, whether it be from you, from BD
Yeah,
Outdoors,
right.
and it gives us a better picture of what's going on in the fishery at any given point in the year. So,
Yeah.
again, big advantage of the internet versus the 976
Yeah.
concept. But having that information and being able to make better decisions, it's a big game changer for all of us.
Yeah, 100%. And we reach out all the time to other podcasters. Like we're going to reach out to a guy. Somebody mentioned Cousin Jim does something. We're going to reach out to him, try to have him on the show. We've already had SD Fish and Sips. Well, I don't act like we're in competition with those guys. We're one big happy family. And the more the guys that we can promote and get out there, people are going to hear us. His people are going to hear us. Their people are going to hear our audience. And, we just feel like that's the best way to do this.
Absolutely. Let's bring everybody up in
Yeah.
that journey, not
Yeah, you don't
not
have
leaving
to.
somebody behind.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things, and I hope some coffee people are out there listening, because a big part of your introduction is that morning sip on that mug of coffee. with
Man,
the
is
American
it
flag.
ever?
I'd like to see a coffee company step up, Black Rifle Coffee Company, and
That-
sponsor this man in the morning, because I can't think of anybody that deserves it more and who's more patriotic every morning than you are.
Oh, well, thank you. Part of that was there was kind of an anti-patriotic thing going on in the country. Started a few years ago, kind of the neo-Marxist kind of thing going on. And I was quiet about my religious views, except Notre Dame football. And of course, I was kind of quiet in terms of my patriotism. But then I thought, yeah, being quiet about these things is probably not the way to go anymore. So I just decided, yeah, we can honor America every single morning we come on for veterans just like you who've given
Thank you, sir.
a big piece of their life to our country. And the reason we go fishing, the reason we enjoy freedom is because of your sacrifice, of their sacrifice. So a little flag in the morning just reminds us all about that. I feel that way very strongly.
So any of you coffee people out there, anybody that knows BRCC, we need to get Phil set up as a sponsorship, because that's the number of people you reach on a morning basis is unbelievable.
Thank you. Yeah, our stats are soaring. They continue to grow. We continue to push hard to make sure they grow. We continue to explore new things. We've got Anthony now. You've met him. He's been a huge addition to us because he's just about as crazy as me in terms of work ethic. I think he is. And so he pushes me sometimes. Even when I get a little bit, he's like, no, you need to put up another piece of content. So it works really good. And he's got a wicked sense of humor like I do. So it works good. We're going to keep pushing, keep promoting, keep making sure that we give the opportunity to more people to get out to the great outdoors.
Phil, in our conversation, you had mentioned about a work in progress
Yes.
that you've got with a nonprofit, and I'm going to quote you here,
Yeah.
with the goal of getting people into the great outdoors because it has both emotional and physical value. And the example you used was a retired firefighter in Arizona who can't get to the ocean. Tell us a little bit more about what you're looking to do.
It's so important nowadays, especially with kids scrolling on their phones, adults watching too much TV, to get to the outdoors. Not because it's just a fun thing to do, Walt, but because I think it's an essential part of a healthy lifestyle. Not only physically, I think perhaps even more importantly, mentally, to get that break from reality, to get out into the great outdoors. And so what we're talking about here is that firefighter who doesn't have the funds to do this, helping him to realize that dream, to get out. I can only imagine he's pining away to do this, what it would mean to him, or to go across the border and deal with some kids who will never ever experience a whale watch or a fishing trip because they simply can't afford it. Go down to an old person's home in Mexico and push them out in their wheelchairs into the sunshine and enjoy not only that, but some camaraderie and some people who really love them, really care about them. I think it's all a positive. And we're about, let's see, this is June. So I think we're about September from taking our first donations. We should be all approved at that time. And then we're going to go running on that. I'm going to put a great deal of effort into that because I think it is so important, such an important part of a person's life to get out into the outdoors. It's not just a walk on the beach. It's not just a fishing trip. It is so much more than that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And to give people that opportunity because you have the means and they don't, to give to them in that way, that's a complete circle that's what the good Lord wants us to
Yeah,
do.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And there's a lot of people out there who could use some help with that, or they're just stuck. They're stuck, watching TV. They're stuck because nobody cares about them. They're a little, you can't tell me that you can't watch TV 24 hours a day or scroll on your phone and not be depressed. I don't believe it. You're in this weird world where you're just wasting time. You're wasting time. We talked about what do you want on your tombstone?
Yeah.
Do you want that on your tombstone? That you spent your final years going like this with the slack job, moronic glaze on your face? Or do you want to go out and read to the blind or help somebody? And you can't convince me that the guy that's doing that, reading to the blind, is not going to feel better about his life and feel much better. You get that on your tombstone? Help blind people, read to blind people, or did something like that, man, that's an accomplishment in life.
And actually, the people that are doing the giving, they end up getting a ton back.
100%.
And it's not done with that intention.
Right.
But in reality, as you said, the gratitude that you feel, the ability to be able to give back, that becomes such an overwhelming feeling. And it'll get you to do it again and again and again.
My AA sponsor, when I first started, I used to say, thank you so much for all you're doing. And I never got this, but I did get it later. He would say, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. That giving, that helping, reaching out, it does way more. Father Ignatius told me that when I went to Costa Rica. Don't think you're doing something, great for these people. They're going to do way more for you than you're going to do for them. Yeah. Met my wife, speak Spanish, opened all these doors. Father Ignatius was right. He had it right.
Wow. Let's take a little bit of a left turn here. Let's get back into Friedman Adventures.
Yeah.
So one of the pieces of content that you do on a weekly basis that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Tackle Shop Confessions.
Oh, it's a great show. It's a great show because of the participation of all the people. But Sam De La Torre is such a fountain of information. And, I don't know if you've watched enough to know that if there's too many numbers or associated with a rod blank or something, I won't even read it. I'm like, who the hell would name a rod blank 6, 41, 71, 82, 64, 91, 8, 16? But Sam, he knows that. He knows the numbers by memory, and he knows exactly what that blank is going to be used for. So it's the perfect combination. Sam and I work really well together. He's a great giving guy. And that show is so good. My original thought about the show was, wait a minute. A guy can send in a question, ask about a piece of tackle. We're sitting in a tackle store. You can go get it, Sam.
And that's what he does.
And show it.
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
Everything from tackle, lures, rods, reels. And he's got quite an inventory. So I don't think I've seen too many questions come in where he doesn't have the means to be able to pull something and actually give good, honest content feedback on it.
Yeah, and he's very honest about stuff. He's very honest about what works, what doesn't work, and everything else. And we mess with each other quite a bit on that show.
No.
And it's a delightful show. We've actually, Walt, started to get a studio audience now where, any given night we have between 6 and 15 people that show up that want to watch the show live, and we're good with that. It's kind of fun. And then we all go out and eat chicken wings
Chicken wings
afterwards.
after.
Yeah, we go out and do that. So it's turned into a great show Monday nights, and I'm happy that it's worked out so well.
What I'm pleasantly surprised to see is not only with your show, the Monday Night Tackle Shop Confessions, had the same type of a conversation with Brian with his instructional videos that he's doing on live on Instagram now. What they're becoming just blown away with is how far outside of our California market
Yeah.
you're getting people watching and listening. In your case, asking phenomenal questions. In Brian's case, it's just how far of a reach am I making in this world?
Right.
You guys, you and Sam are just killing it when it comes to getting outside of our market here.
It's incredible. I mean, we have all the United States, so we'll get questions from Colorado or the East Coast. We get questions from the Midwest, the South, from all over the United States. But then you start getting questions from Guam, from Costa Rica, from Mexico. You start getting questions from Taiwan. We had a kid from China, and they have a little bit of difficulty getting on a YouTube channel. You got to have a VPN and skirt all the CCP's restrictions.
Right.
He found a way to do it. So it's an international thing now. You're so right. You know, we have people that are coming to the show, want to learn about fishing, and Sam is so good at doing that.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many tackle tips that I have picked up from watching Sam's content. And of course, I didn't know about Sam until I had seen him on your show, much as the same as I found out about Brian Wynn through your content. So yeah, I absolutely love that Monday night show. If you get a chance, 6 o'clock Pacific time, Monday nights, Tackle Shop Confessions. You won't be disappointed. Give it a shot.
Thank you, Walt.
Folks, thank you so much. This is we're going to put an end to today's podcast. I want to ask that you please hit the like and subscribe buttons below so that we can keep you advised as to when the next podcast will drop. And with that, sir, thank you so very much.
Walt, thank you for your service. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm humbled to be on with you, and I wish you continued success. I already know that's going to happen, but I just want to wish you my very best.
Thank you so much. It means the world coming from you.
Thank you, Walt.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us today. We're glad you stopped by. And as I like to say, get out there, get fishing, and get some.